The Palace of Versailles is a towering emblem of grandeur and wealth, and it represents the pinnacle of French art, culture, and architecture. However, a mystery of lesser-known dirty secrets that starkly contrast its shining image may be found beneath its grand facade. This script digs into the hidden aspects of Versailles. Ready to dive in? Let's go. The origins and ambitious vision of Versailles. Let's journey back to 1661. A young and ambitious Louis XIV ascends the throne of France, a nation eager to witness the reign of the Sun King. Displeased with the existing royal residences, Louis sets his sights on transforming his father's humble hunting lodge in Versailles into a grandeur that would mirror his authority. His vision is not just about building a castle, but about crafting a symbol of his reign. Versailles starts to be built while Louis XIV is monitoring its development. This is about building a symbol, rather than merely building particular rooms and corridors. The small hunting lodge becomes an enormous project right once, needing the involvement of thousands of workers and the most gifted architects and painters of the day. Over time, this site will grow into a sizable estate, with opulent gardens, luxurious rooms, and ornate decorations screaming riches and power. Why is this development driven? There is more to it than just the royal need for luxury. Reiterating his divine right to rule, Louis XIV sees Versailles as a venue where he may exhibit the total might of the monarchy. Each and every brick, gold leaf, and fountain strives to improve his image and build his legacy as the supreme monarch. Versailles was not just about aesthetics, but a strategic move to centralize power. By relocating the royal court from Paris to Versailles, Louis XIV ensured that the nobility remained under his watchful eye. The palace, transformed into a gilded prison, compelled the lords and ladies of France to live in opulence and partake in elaborate daily ceremonies, all designed to keep them occupied and under control. Louis XIV deftly used Versailles to seize and dominate the aristocrats. He kept them occupied by carrying out ceaseless rites and giving them amusement, therefore preventing them from planning against him. The magnificence of the palace acted as a perpetual reminder of the king's authority and reliance on his favor. Moreover, Versailles is evidence of Louis XIV's aspirations and his idea of absolute monarchy since he built it. Every aspect of the palace, from its great halls to its painstakingly crafted gardens, reflects his aim to build a tiny version of his empire, one in which his word is law. The palace is meant to be large and flashy to impress and scare people, therefore exhibiting his riches and power to his supporters and the rest of the globe. Louis XIV produced the masterpiece known as the Palace of Versailles. It physically represents his rule and conviction of heads of state's divine power. Every element in this site is created to repeat the idea of the king's unquestioning power. Underneath this glitter, the palace hides tales and secrets revealing the intricacy and paradoxes of its creation and his rule. These legends and secrets clarify the palace's secret past. The extravagance and excess of court life. In the reign of Louis XIV, Versailles was a theater and a palace, and it was there that the most spectacular performances of wealth might occur around the clock. Every day in Versailles was a never-ending display of lavish celebrations and ceremonies meant to honor the Sun King and guarantee his ongoing control. Every day, the king would engage in a sophisticated waking ceremony known as the lever. Getting out of bed was more than just a simple motion. It was a ritual painstakingly arranged whereby nobility competed with one another for the honor of serving the king with his daily activities. This daily performance helped reinforce the hierarchy that existed since every activity circled the king. The rituals have more meaning than only that. The court hosted a lot of celebrations all through the day. These events encompassed everything from extravagant feasts to musical performances, ballets, and theater shows. Referring to his meals as grand couvert, the king let the aristocracy view and join in his eating experience and was open to the public. These dinners were acts of political theater, stressing the king's riches and the nobility's subordination to him, not merely for eating purposes. Regarding his authority over the nobility, Louis XIV relied mainly on various forms of amusement. Evening soirees, hunting trips, and giant balls were among the commonplace activities that frequently took place. Typically held in the Hall of Mirrors, widely considered the most well-known chamber in Versailles, these gatherings were where courtiers would engage in activities such as dancing, hanging out, and engaging in conspiratorial activities. More than only for their pleasure, these get-togethers were meticulously planned to maintain the nobility's interest and control over them. His Majesty Louis XIV ensured that the nobility depended on the court for their social position and that they were kept away from political maneuvering through the provision of regular entertainment. It is impossible to overstate the magnitude of these occurrences' magnificence. The hosting of masquerade parties, complete with extravagant costumes, pyrotechnics displays, and delectable food, was a typical hobby. These celebrations, which further emphasized the king's wealth and authority, were held against the gorgeous backdrop of the gardens of Versailles, which are famed for their spectacular architecture and numerous fountains. Louis XIV fashioned a universe where he was the ultimate center, and everyone else revolved around him because of his actions. This was made possible by the intricate rites and rituals that he performed daily. Versailles' grandeur extended beyond the daily ceremonies and rites there. It included every nook and crevice of the palace and the gardens. Regarding turning Versailles into an emblem of absolute monarchy, Louis XIV most certainly did not cut any corners. Versailles' architecture, artwork, and dress all reflected this extreme expenditure. All of them were luxuries. The palace in and of itself was a masterwork of architecture and grandeur. Designed to wow visitors, the architectural wonder known as the Hall of Mirrors has 17 mirrored arches reflecting the 17 windows staring out onto the grounds. Every chamber was bursting with exquisite furniture, tapestries, and artwork. The ceilings were decorated with rich paintings honoring the king's achievements. André Le Nôtre also oversaw the creation of the similarly magnificent gardens. The gardens featured exquisite fountains, precisely kept lawns, and geometrically matched pathways. These gardens were more than just a statement of beauty. They were a declaration of power proving control over nature. An individual was able to indulge in excess while wearing the dress of Versailles. Throughout the day, the courtiers were expected to change their attire multiple times and show the most contemporary and elegant designs. This demonstrated their wealth and ensured that they were forced to live under perpetual financial pressure, further demonstrating their reliance on the king. Even though the desire for such exquisite garments and accessories was a driving force behind the expansion of businesses in France, it also resulted in the aristocrats incurring enormous amounts of personal debt. Ridiculous, right? However, this never-ending pursuit of luxury comes at a significant financial cost. Spending money to keep Versailles in good working order was quite costly. The palace construction needed significant resources and labor, from the gardeners who tended to the expansive grounds to the artists who designed the intricate architecture and decoration. The royal treasury was quickly depleted due to the persistent demand for luxury items and entertainment. The extravagant expenditures that Louis XIV made on Versailles were one of the primary factors contributing to the burden the French economy was under. The consequences of the economic issues affected every part of the nation. The regular people had to deal with mounting taxation and challenging financial situations, while the nobility delighted themselves to excess. The disparity between the splendor of Versailles and the poverty that permeated the rest of France grew even more evident with time. These ostentatious expenses planted discontent that would eventually help the monarchy fall. The hidden battles of Versailles. Life. Hidden behind the glittering facade of Versailles, the miserable reality of life for the servants and commoners stood in sharp contrast to the wealth enjoyed by the aristocracy. A sizable army of servants worked non-stop behind the scenes to maintain the palace's grandeur from the inside out. These men and ladies were in charge of doing the heavy tasks required so that the palace operated effectively. They usually put in long hours under challenging circumstances. The servants were in charge of everything, from cleaning the extensive grounds to preparing the sumptuous feasts the court enjoyed. Their dwelling quarters were small, and they lived far from the wealthy homes of the aristocrats. Often living in appalling conditions, they lacked even the most basic luxuries. Many servants had minimal chances for growth or relief from their labor. They were also under constant demands and rigid hierarchies. Though essential for the system's operation, they were hardly visible gears in the Versailles machine and were mainly ignored and disregarded. The commoners who provided the palace goods and services also faced significant challenges that could have discouraged them. Often forced to supply the court with food and luxury goods at rates set by the king, local farmers and craftsmen were. This economic pressure caused great strain on the nearby towns, which helped explain their general poverty and discontent. A tremendous social gap developed from the sharp difference between the court's opulent lifestyle and the ordinary people's sorrows. Though they fulfilled somewhat significant duties, more is needed because the lavish lifestyles of the nobles shade over the existence of the commoners and servants. Though they were the basis upon which the great wealth and privilege of the court were built, those people who put a lot of effort and sacrifice were mainly forgotten in the grand narrative of Versailles. Their challenges, hidden from view, are an arresting reminder of the human cost of the palace's glory. Underneath Versailles' glistening facade, there existed a basic problem that was often overlooked: cleanliness and hygiene. The palace was renowned for lacking sufficient sanitary amenities, even if it was of great beauty. The sheer size of Versailles, combined with the constant presence of thousands of courtiers and servants, produced a situation whereby basic hygiene was a daily challenge. There were few bathrooms in the palace, and the accessible ones were inadequate for the number of occupants. As a result, courtiers often empty themselves in seclusion, that is, in stairways, corners, even behind curtains. The smell was strong, and it was not unusual for the beautiful courtyards and gardens to be utilized as open-air latrines around the construction. Poor sanitation created conditions fit for the spread of illness and suffering. The water supply was another essential problem Versailles had. The palace needed several aqueducts and pumps to transfer water from far-off sources, yet these systems were sometimes defective and needed more water supply. Clean drinking water was a luxury that was not often accessible. The water used for cooking and bathing was often polluted. This is the reason the residents of Versailles developed a wide range of health problems, from somewhat minor disorders to more severe ones. The inadequate hygienic conditions that prevailed and were evident led to regular diseases like typhoid and dysentery. Not only were lower-class people harmed by these health issues, even the royal family and nobility suffered. The predominance of disease constantly underlined the obvious discrepancy between the palace's outward appearance and the reality of life that lived behind its walls. Notwithstanding these challenges, the court kept giving appearances top importance while giving more practical advancements second thought. The splendor and opulence of Versailles were always under preservation, usually at the expense of the health and welfare of the residents. The lack of basic sanitation and cleanliness reveals the underlying struggles and daily misery that defined life at Versailles. This was true even of individuals who seemed to be living in the lap of luxury. At Versailles, life was not simply a succession of magnificent balls and ornate ceremonies, but a hive of political maneuvers and betrayals. Power struggles and backstabbing were accepted and a regular habit in the court where she lived. The proximity of the nobles to the king created an environment ideal for espionage, since everyone fought for dominance and favor among themselves. Known as the Affair of the Poisons, a scandal that rocked Louis XIV's court, it was among the most well-known plots of the day. High-ranking officials and individuals of the king's close circle engaged in this complex network of illicit activity were involved in allegations of poisonings, and black magic started to surface as the late 1670s arrived, linking some of the most influential people in court. The scandal began with this. The incident revealed a dark underline of envy, greed, and relentless desire for the public. Among Louis XIV's lovers, Madame de Montespan was among those captured and executed during the Affair of the Poisons. She was among those apprehended and hanged. She was accused of participating in black masses and poisonings. The controversy covered the court and underlined the extent to which people would obtain authority and eradicate rivals. This cloud over the court made clear that the negative consequences of courtly intrigue may affect even strong personalities. The political maneuvers at Versailles transcended mere scandals of such a well-known character. Every day at the court, there was plenty of subtle movement and strategic alliances formed. Nobles engaged in flattery, deception, and spying sought to win the king's favor and discredit their rivals. This continuous search for control created hostile and competitive surroundings. Often fleeting, loyalty was a regular occurrence. Treachery was not rare. The intrigues that developed at Versailles reflected France's more extraordinary political environment, where the balance of power was continuously changing. One may argue that the court had its laws and dynamics, acting as a replica of the kingdom. Understanding the political maneuverings and betrayals at Versailles helps one better appreciate life's complex and often tricky character at the core of the French monarchy. Apart from the political intrigue there, Versailles was the backdrop for several royal scandals involving amorous exploits and illicit affairs. These controversies captivated the public and the court and exposed the royal human flaws and aspirations, who seemed untouchable. Louis XIV was involved in one of the most notorious scandals affecting the royal family. Louis was known to have several mistresses, and there was a lot of gossip and conjecture about his love affairs. The fact that he had an affair with Madame de Montespan, spanning more than 10 years, was particularly startling. Montespan's reputation suffered, even though she had a lot of power in the courtroom due to her part in the Affair of the Poisons. Apart from her falling from grace, the case revealed how personal ties might influence politics and the court system dynamics. Concurrent with this was another major scandal, the affair between Louis XV and Madame de Pompadour. Appointed as the king's official mistress in 1745, Jeanne-Antoinette Poisson, popularly known as Madame de Pompadour, her intelligence and charm helped her land a big job at court, where she was crucial in handling political and cultural concerns. Her power and the public displays of affection the king produced for her caused the nobles to get entangled in jealousy and resentment. Pompadour's posture and the king's apparent contempt for tradition exposed the power relations and personal conflicts defining life at Versailles. These royal family scandals had major effects on the monarchy, not only a matter of gossip. Apart from influencing public opinion, they contributed to the growing discontent with the royal family. The supposed moral failings and excesses of the kings and their courts caused the ancient respect for the monarchy to fade, fueling the need for change. The effects of these disputes were felt much beyond the palace's walls. Widespread attention and debate helped them become clearly woven into France's cultural fabric. Stories about the royal family's bad behavior circulated far and wide, and satirical pamphlets and caricatures were used to produce parodies of them. These stories of mystery and scandal set the setting for the impending revolutionary events while adding to the greater story of the fall of the French monarchy. The scandals during the royal court at Versailles were much more than theatrical tales. They mirrored the more fundamental issues the monarchy and society carried. They were essential in deciding the course of French history and helped to expose the weaknesses and human flaws of those in charge by their behavior. Versailles' legacy and downfall. Initially regarded as the height of royal magnificence and absolute power, the Palace of Versailles was one of the most significant elements causing the financial collapse that finally resulted in the French Revolution. The significant expenses connected with preserving Versailles and the extravagant lifestyle of the French kings directly led to incredible pressure on the state's resources. King Louis XIV's ambitious vision for Versailles required enormous building, maintenance, and extravagant court life expenditures, which greatly added to the national debt. France's financial situation from the start of the 18th century was further taxed in the later years by its involvement in costly wars, including the American Revolutionary War and the 7 Years' War. The government faced a financial crisis due to the state's coffers' depletion. In 1789, King Louis XVI convened a gathering of the Estates General, which comprised the 3 estates: the clergy, the nobility, and the ordinary people. This was carried out in an attempt to resolve the then existing financial instability. Nevertheless, this effort failed and exposed the long-standing inequality and the mounting discontent of the people with extravagant royal behavior. Versailles became a symbol of both elements, a clear mark of royal luxury and a distance from the ordinary people. While the royalty was feasting on opulent meals and extravagant ceremonies, the common public was battling poverty, hunger, and growing bread prices. This quite striking contrast helped to inspire a revolution. The mounting discontent of the people was expressed in the October 1789 Women's March on Versailles. During this event, thousands of Parisian women marched to the palace to demand bread and force the royal family to move to Paris. This event exposed the great gulf separating the king from the French people and signaled the start of Versailles' fall from the political center of France. Located against the backdrop of French history, Versailles boasts a monument honoring the absolute monarchy. This framework was built by Louis XIV, sometimes known as the Sun King, to reflect his total authority and streamline the French government. Symbols of the power and splendor of the French monarchy were the Hall of Mirrors, the abundant gardens, and the complex architectural details. Versailles was a political tool, a stage for displaying the king's power, and a means of subjugating the nobles by requiring their attendance at court. It was not only a royal palace. Versailles refers to the Palace of Versailles. Political prominence dropped after the Revolution, but Versailles remained important in culture and history. In the 19th century, King Louis-Philippe converted it into a museum under the name the Museum of the History of France. Starting with the monarchy and working through the Revolution and all in between, the museum presented the history of the country. This change helped preserve the architectural grandeur and the historical relics of Versailles, ensuring that Versailles would remain a significant cultural symbol. Versailles is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site nowadays and draws almost millions of tourists annually. It is evidence of the artistic and architectural achievements of the 17th and 18th centuries as an homage to them. Beyond its evident splendor, The palace's legacy reflects the complexity of French history, from the height of royal authority to the depths of revolutionary upheaval. Building the palace in the 17th century. Apart from drawing guests and imparting knowledge, Versailles' grandeur offers insights into the historical events and social structures influencing the development of contemporary France. Versailles' grandeur contrasts with its hidden secrets of financial mismanagement and social disconnect, which provides excellent lessons in society's balance and government. The past of Versailles emphasizes the need to attend to the needs and complaints of every social level, as well as the risks of unbridled luxury. Preserved in its grand architecture and legendary past, Versailles reminds us of the results of ignoring social fairness and economic reality. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the secrets of Versailles. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Remember to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you get all the updates. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What fascinates you most about Versailles? Until next time, keep exploring history.